Alright. Alright, it's good to be back. What is up, Buddy Boy Nation? I'm back. I just only have a few minutes here. We're finally back on the grind. Just wanted to make a quick video on this one because I'm currently on vacation right now. That was my hotel, and now we're gonna kind of get into the mall or something, right? Yeah, I only have a few minutes here. I don't know if I can do this in like 15 minutes, but let's just keep going, right? That's the I don't like it. Yeah, I've been doing really well, I don't think it's too bad being alone and walking around alone. Everybody is kind of, we're chilling, right? Everybody has like their friends or girlfriends or whatever, right? But yeah, I only have a few minutes here. I don't have much to worry about, so let's just go down. I want to go to the grocery store and see what's going on. I'm not gonna buy anything. All right. Yeah, it's cool stuff. What is it I want to talk about? I don't have much time. Oh yeah, I want to talk about this. So, I think long-time viewers of the channel already sort of understand like what I talk about and what I think is the root cause of the problem, right? Just to put it brief, it's something along the lines of the Western European marriage pattern, right? It's the one that Blackpool Academy told me about. It's been like a disaster for the human race. Like, arguably before the Jays, before feminism or whatever, right? The problem, I think, right, just to make it quick, is that Western monogamy, and this was before like Christianity, monogamy in Greece and Rome, right? Maybe it's a little bit of the geographical conditions or the biological conditions of Europe. It's cold, it has 4 seasons and whatever, right? But it's still like sort of based on the assumption that excess males, and I do mean excess males, like not like ink wells and true cells of today, but like men in the past, excess males. What's an excess male? Well, an excess male is somebody who is sort of like genetically inferior or physically incapable due to one way or another to the Darwinian sense of adaptation. Is just not there, right? But it's like, the consideration of Western societies being weird, like the ones in Greece and Rome, where yeah, there were certain loopholes, like men can have sex and copulate with prostitutes and slaves, right? But they still, like, even like elite men under legal law, it's like, to prevent in-group competition, they gotta stick to one wife, right? Divorces were there, but like it's always one wife and one child, or multiple children with that one wife. It's still like, sure, the dad is still the one who is like the one who's taking control, but like only one wife. Even like the richest top dudes, like the kings and whatever, right? They still have to go with the program and only have one wife to prevent any kind of in-group competition or whatever, right? The chats, assume that the chats have to share all the voids, all the women to the sub-5s or the normies or excess males in like 2,000 years ago. And this sort of like, it's sort of the reason why Romans and Greeks and whatever, who practice monogamy sort of see the rest of the societies like China or Japan or India, the polygyny and stuff like that. Except for Africa. Africa's like, it's a whole different kind of game. But like, in general, given that they are quote unquote weird themselves, they sort of like they see this and that. They see other societies, they see other races as incompetent. The Islamic societies as incompetent, lazy, freaky, or whatever, right? Because they practice monogamy. But like the monogamy before Christian times, if we just look, if you look deeper like I did into the things that sort of shaped the European advancements, their technological and agricultural advancements of society, they just sort of like the tendencies for such a thing which makes it possible is already there to begin with. Like, I don't think it's too hard as an entire system for like the alright, let's yeah, I want to get out of here, but like I don't think it's too hard for the Jays to instill Christianity to Rome, right? Like Europe becoming a Christian continent. Like, I don't think it's too hard. There was not really much retaliation in contrast to like China or Japan. Well, that was before like transportation and whatever, right? Because like the monogamy, like the tendencies are already there. It's already planned out for you. You were like, if you're a J, you already had a head start to begin with. Oh, these dudes were already practicing monogamy. All right, how about we make that monogamy practice instead of like a civic duty, a political allegiance, into something akin to like the soul, like Freudian psychology about falling in love and whatever, and make it a lot more strict, which only ends up Rome collapsing 2,000 years ago. And as some of my friends have suggested, the world like sort of never fully recovered from it, right? So if you've been paying attention for the past 8 minutes, and you probably already are aware of this, but like, when people talk about pessimism and whatever, they're always talking about the individual, like metaphysical notion, sort of like Schopenhauer's will to live, the asymmetry argument. It's always about one person's life, the individual, which is fine, it's fine. Like, a lot of people are suffering, obviously, but like, I'm looking at this on an entirely collective level, and I sort of like see that it's kind of, it's like if we're damn lucky to survive like 2030 as a species, and sort of get everything right, no more female choice, no more liberalism and whatever, but the choices we make, since we have this innate drive of survival, and then our ancestors sort of risk it all just so that they can still have a piece of the pie, either it's mates or resources and whatever, right? From like, it's a risky play, and then we're just gonna do it again, and then it's sort of predictable and deterministic that, there's this whole talk about bring back the white race, or pro-white or whatever, but like, I mean, why was it even a thing in the first place? I mean, pretty sure all nation states are very prideful of themselves, but like, you know, it was Europe who sort of got this like Apollonian threshold and sort of like put it up to their own demise, which isn't really their fault. Like, it's like, you know, you just don't really see the long-term consequences because you were never really given the position to, right? You were just trying to survive, and like, it's like, it still sort of is today. You know, obviously it's kind of different because of memes and capitalism and whatever. Hold on, let me get over it. So, right. So yeah, there was a paper over there. But is this thing off? Right. So I only have a few minutes. Yeah, but like, nobody was really thinking ahead 2,000 years in the future. And it's like, even now, like, I'd say like 95% of the people in the entire world don't really see this as a practical and consequential level about how, you know, like, misogyny and MGTOW and even the black pill can only get you so far when it comes to Freud's and whatever. You know, it's sort of like what Dismal talks about. You have to be completely indifferent and neutral about this thing, right? And the only reason why I don't fully support like anti-natalism or whatever is pretty much because it's sort of like AI, right? The results are shitty. Like I talked about before, it's now tied to liberalism, and people are just sort of, they see it as trendy or whatever, like single income, no kids, oofy doofy or whatever, the demographic doom. But like, yeah, if it weren't for like the continental subspecies of Homo sapiens or whatever, or the Jays, or the Africans, and all these other races and all these other dudes who really don't really have like some sort of Ubermensch or Einzig, because their chemical and neurological processes aren't really there to help them to begin with, right? It's sort of like it never began. You know, you were born, if you were born sadistic, you are most likely to be a sadist or whatever, right? Yeah, because, and it's like, their solipsism doesn't really help as well, right? They don't really like go away from family and relationships and love, because they are sort of like what Weininger had hoped for, like they sort of become transcendent. No, they just found a different kind of opportunity, a higher level of solipsism through the J's and money and, you know, and these like the advice given from like Stanton and Sanger, right? Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. I find it really frustrating how we sort of, you know, I think we have to completely abandon women completely. Like, we have to, at some point, you do, like, I realize that, you know, it's pointless trying to, you know, I don't necessarily seeing the practical and consequential lens, like sort of like pragmatic lens of anti-natalism or whatever, but I get the idea. I probably have thought about this further than what most anti-natalists tend to claim. Like, it's pointless. You know, Europe is just gonna, if we